I want the children of Papua New Guinea and the Papua New Guineans to know 90% of the Papua New Guineans will continue to live under the grinding poverty line, while the 9% will continue to work for the 1% and oligarchs. Papua New Guinea, corrupt politicians and business people will continue to live a luxurious life on the shoulders of the ordinary Papua New Guineans. The corrupt politicians and the corrupt business people in Papua New Guinea have their businesses in Australia and have their residency in Australia. They send their children to school in a very expensive schools in Australia, and they have their bank accounts in Australia. That's what Papua New Guinea must know. And every Friday they go down to Cairns to do their shopping, while the ordinary Papua New Guineans go to Vision City to do their shopping in elsewhere towns throughout the country. The corrupt business people and the corrupt politicians go do their shopping in Australia. For one example, the last NRL game, Stage of Maroon game, almost 72 members of the Parliament of Papua New Guinea and their bureaucrats went down to watch rugby in Australia. That proves that Papua New Guinea politicians are village bureaucrats. They ride on the taxpayers' money while the people are suffering to access proper education, proper water supply. When people have this crisis of proper accommodation and a living standard of Papua New Guinea has gone down. Those are the things that we must take into account. My frustration to the political leaders of the country is because they are not doing enough. They are not doing enough to liberate Papua New Guineans from the economic slavery. Some of the politicians have promised to liberate the country from the economic slavery, and they come up with a slogan stating that take back PNG, make PNG the first black rich Christian nation. That slogan is about liberating Papua New Guinea from the economic slavery to become economically independent. What I have seen now is that everything has gone in a different direction. That is why I've been so vocal and frustrated, because politicians are all becoming village bureaucrats. Therefore, I want to remind Papua New Guineans, we cannot continue to stand idle. We must stand up and speak out, use our basic rights, the freedom of speech, to speak out against this gross corruption. If a politician is stating that he has been defamed and trying to use the cyber law, that is an authoritarianism way of ruling the country. Politicians are public property. They are public people. They are not a private citizen. They are public citizens who are accountable to their citizens. The voters have every right to ask questions and criticize them. So those of you who don't understand politics, I want you guys to learn and listen and learn so that you may be educated. There are 9 points that I want to bring so that we Papua New Guineans must look back to the history and understand what has gone down wrong and why we are still struggling and why the economy of Papua New Guinea has been affected, why we are living below $1 household income. Those are the things that we need to question instead of bragging and talking and without understanding what is happening in the country. So I want to bring these 9 points and I want you guys to understand. But let me bring this very important point to you guys. The minimum wage rate in Papua New Guinea is 3.20 toya. That is, when you convert the 3.20 to the US dollar, it's about 92 cents. Minimum wage in the US is start with $8. The minimum wage in Australia is $22. The minimum wage in Canada starts with $12.50. And minimum wage in the richest country in the Pacific that produce gold, oil, gas, timber, all kinds of resources, natural resource, is 3.22 toya. That is 90 cents. That means that Papua New Guinea household income is below $1. That is a laughing stock when it comes to our economy. That is why Papua New Guinea, it is worth fighting, it is worth talking, it is worth expressing our views and our opinions. That's why I want you to take into account and reflect on these 9 things that I want to share with you today. The reason why the Europeans have created a grand scheme is to keep Papua New Guineans and Africans and Caribbeans, especially the Pacific Islanders, the Caribbeans and the Colombians and the Africans, especially all the black nations, as a raw material producers and the laborers. That's what they want to do. They were not there to develop the country. They were not there to improve the living standard of the citizens in the country. So that's why I want you to take into account these 9 points that I want to share with you today. Number 1, the slaves that escaped from America to Haiti fought against France, and they defeated France in a humiliation defeat and got their independence in 1804. Haiti was the first black nation to get independence after beating the French and got their independence. They were the first black republic. In 1884 to 1885, during the Berlin Conference, the Europeans came together to create a grand scheme. And that grand scheme is to colonize Africa and other black nations. The only country which was not colonized was Ethiopia, because Ethiopia defeated Italy twice. One in 1878 to 1889, and the other one was in 1935 to 1937. The reason why Italians wanted to colonize Ethiopia is to find the missing puzzle, to find the missing puzzle, the Ark of Covenant, which was missing in the Egyptian New Kingdom, now called Judea Samaria. 1884 to 1885, Berlin Conference was purposely created to divide and rule. They want to divide, rule, and plunder the natural resources of Africa and other black nations. And they want Africa to be laborers and raw material producers.
Africa had a role to play. It has a role as a raw material producer. We will not allow sub-Saharan Africa to escape that. Okay, we do everything to keep sub-Saharan Africa where it is, also impoverished. It's absolutely vital.
In order for the Europeans to divide and rule and plunder the oil and gas and the mineral resources of the African nations, they introduced Christianity. Europeans brought the Bible, they give us the Bible, they got our lands. And they told us to believe in Jesus Christ and do away with our tradition because they said our tradition was bad and evil. On the other hand, they stole our culture and monetized them. For example, they told us to throw away our artifacts and relics, the sacred relics and artifacts, and then they took those relics and artifacts, kept them in the museums in Paris, England, and elsewhere in the European countries. Africans must not trust the sincerity of Europeans. Sincerity of Europeans is a deception to fool black nations, but their real intent is to divide, rule, and plunder our oil, gas, and mineral resources. If you haven't learned a lesson yet, then you are real primitive, trying to be white bleaching and whitewash. Europeans wanted to be seen as rulers or masters, not as servants or laborers. That is why EU Foreign Policy Chief Joseph Borrell stated, Europe is a beautiful garden.
Europe is a garden. We have built a garden. Everything works, so the rest of the world is a jungle. We are privileged people.
Who built that beautiful garden called Europe? The Moors built that beautiful garden.
A dark-skinned, savage, alien enemy.
Ignorance. Europeans want us to be ignorant so that they can keep us brainwashed and white bleached. They want to drive that narrative that we must believe in a white savior. Believe in the white savior to redeem us from our economic slavery and our economic struggle and our economic hardship. That's what they want you to believe. And that's the tool they use to brainwash us. They gave us the Bible, they took our land, they took our everything out from us, our culture, our tradition. And then they took all those culture, our tradition, our relics, our artifacts, and they monetized them by keeping them in the museums. That's what I want you to remember. To summarize this, the Europeans came into our country, they brought the Bible on the right hand, the left hand they brought a gun. They brought the soft power and hard power. They gave us the Bible, we got the Bible, we gave the land, our resources, everything to them. Tell them to rule over us because they told us our big man system was not good enough. Our way of living was not good enough. Our principles of governance was not good enough. Our big man system and butter system was not good enough. They want us to adopt to the European system. They brainwash us and we accept it, and then they turn around. They took control over our resources through the development policies. They wrote a law in a way that they want to rip out our resources and control us at the same time. That's why even today you will see a white man in every government department, starting from immigration to labor to everywhere. You will see a white consultant, a policy advisor from Australia and England somewhere, still living there. Go and look at it, find out for yourself. That's the truth I want you guys to remember. Then the other thing is that they get our raw materials and they take it to Australia or America, somewhere in England. They don't process it into finished product. They buy it on a tentoya. They come and sell it to us on Andrikina. That's what they are doing. And most of the oil and gas and the gold and timber, everything that has been harvested in this country has been given a tax-free for 30 years or plus and beyond. Some companies, they do not even pay the tax from the natural resources they are extracting from the country. Therefore, the so-called educated Papua New Guineans, if you are saying you are educated and if you are saying that you speak good English, I'm encouraging you to come out and educate our young generation so that they may not make the same mistake that our fathers have done. That's why I made a history in making videos and coming out and showing my frustration. If I am using the curse words, that is Houseman talk. In the Houseman talk, they use certain curse words to make people to remember their mistakes. And that's Houseman talk. Suppose you are me or me talk no good on a I'm not talk no good. I'm not to talk me to talk. You man you know Houseman, them you know sour by na salo to story. So my encouragement to Papua New Guineans is that don't feel afraid to say what you want because you've got a basic rights. But those politicians who are trying to use the cyber law and saying that I have been defamed, they are public property. They are accountable to the people of Papua New Guinea. They are accountable to the voters. Voters have only one basic rights, that is called the freedom of speech. That is the only power that voters have for checks and balance, so that to align the political leaders so that they can do the right thing. They cannot use the cyber law and try to discriminate and make that become a legal issue. They cannot do that. You are politicians. When you become politicians, your privilege for being private person has been revoked. Your privilege to be a private person and to have that privilege that you have been defamed as a private person has been revoked, because you are parliamentarian, you are public figure, and you are public property. You have been paid through the government, people's tax money. So taxpayers have a right to question you. So those village bureaucrat politicians, let me advise you. You are not a private person. You are a public figure. And public figure, we have every right to scrutinize you. We have every right to criticize you. We have every right to say whatever we want to say, because you are public property. You have been paid on the taxpayers' money. So those nonsense must not profile and try to bring that narrative into a context that you have been defamed, and those people who are saying things against you are liable for legal action against them, just to suppress them from stating or expressing their opinion or views. You have no right to do that. That's what I want Papua New Guineans to take into account.